I will invite the House to rise and observe 1 minute of silence in memory of late Anirudh Jagannath, former Prime Minister and President of the Republic of Mauritius. Thank you. Motion, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
The question that the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favour, the aye. Those against, the no.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Tribute to be paid.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with a heavy heart and profound sadness that I address the House and the nation to pay tribute to the memory of Sir Anirudh Jagannath, GCSK, KCMG, QC, PC, former President of the Republic and former Prime Minister, who passed away on Thursday, 3rd of June 2021, at the age of 91. With the demise of Sir Anirudh, the country has lost one of its most illustrious sons, a remarkable and highly respected statesman who devoted himself to the service of his motherland and in his own unique way touched the hearts of his people. It is indeed a difficult task to do full justice to the memory of such an outstanding and inspirational leader who leaves such a huge legacy. Mr. Speaker, sir, Sir Anirudh was born on 29th March 1930 at Palma, Quatre-Bornes. He attended the Palma Church of England School for his primary education and later the Regent College for his secondary education. Destined to become the architect of modern Mauritius, Sir Anirudh had very humble beginnings. But those early days of poverty, tribulations, and hardships had their own compensation in that they built in his ethical and moral foundation. The first lessons came from his father, the second from Professor Basteu Bisundayal, and the third from his school. He, as a youth, naturally imbibed these priceless ethical and moral values and principles to which he was exposed. These forged his character and shaped and guided his life and actions, helping him to withstand all the demanding trials and temptations which came in his way ever since. Mr. Speaker, sir, in 1948, Sir Anirudh took up employment at the New Eton College, where he taught history and geography for about a year. In 1949, he joined the civil service as clerk at the then Poor Law Department, where he served for about 8 months before being transferred to the judiciary. He was first attached to the Industrial Court, from where he was later transferred to the District Court of Rosehill. His service at the judiciary had certainly influenced his choice of career. In 1951, he left for the United Kingdom to pursue his tertiary education in law, and in 1954, he was called to the bar at Lincoln's Inn. This was also the period during which he developed his passion for English football. He was known to be a die-hard fan of Manchester United Football Club, and he would not, if he could, miss any of its matches. After his studies, Sir Anirudh returned to Mauritius in May 1955, and his passion for politics propelled him in the political arena. In 1957, he contested the village council elections in Parlement and became a village councillor and president of the village. Thereafter, he joined the Independent Forward Bloc, and in 1963, he contested the Legislative Council elections in the then constituency number 14, Rivière-du-Rempart, and was elected to serve the then Legislative Council. In 1964, he participated in the Municipal Council elections for Vaqua Phoenix and was returned as councillor to serve the council. His participation in the London Constitutional Conference in 1965, held at the Lancaster House, was another momentous occasion in his rich political career. He was part of the Mauritian delegation led by Sir Sivasagar Ramgoolam to that crucial and decisive constitutional conference, which was to decide on the ultimate status of the colony of Mauritius. Sir Anirudh had made considerable efforts to convince Sukhdev Bisundayal, his then leader, to support the pro-independence group at the Lancaster House Conference. Kevin Shillington writes in a biography of Sir Anirudh, and I quote, "On the final day of conference, it was thus left to Jagannath to put the IFB's case, and in a very vigorous speech, he gave his party's unqualified support for Ramgoolam's formal call for independence. The submissions of Ramgoolam and Jagannath were the only two speeches made that day in favor of independence. Together, however, the speeches were of sufficient power to create the right impression on the attendant British officials," unquote. The contribution of Sir Anirudh, therefore, helped tilt the balance in favor of independence. This also paved the way for the formation of an alliance of parties, which regrouped the Mauritius Labour Party, the IFB, and the Comité d'Action Musulman, and registered under the name of Independence Party, which won the 1967 general elections and ushered Mauritius into the post-independent era. Mr. Speaker, sir, in November 1965, Sir Anirudh was entrusted with the portfolio of Minister of State, a post which he occupied until 8th of November 1966. Thereafter, he was appointed Minister of Labour. In April 1967, following political and ideological differences with Sir Sivasagar, then Premier and Minister of Finance, Sir Anirudh resigned both as Minister of Labour and member of the then Legislative Assembly. He subsequently joined the judiciary as District Magistrate. In 1969, he was posted to the then Crown Law Office, and 2 years later, in 1971, he was promoted to the status of Senior Crown Counsel. On 30th of September 1971, Sir Anirudh resigned as Senior Crown Counsel to engage himself in active politics. Thus, on 7th December 1971, he joined the Mouvement Militant Mauricien, and 2 years later, in 1973, he became the president of the party. In 1976, Sir Anirudh contested the general election in constituency number 7, Piton and Rivière-du-Rempart, under the banner of the MMM, and was returned as third member to serve the said constituency. There was a hung parliament with the MMM winning 34 seats, the Labour Party 28 seats, and the PMSD 8 seats. Following a coalition between the Labour Party and the PMSD, the post-electoral alliance became the ruling party. Sir Anirudh was thus appointed as leader of the opposition. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 11th June 1982, Sir Anirudh again contested the general election in constituency number 7 under the banner of the MMM-PSM alliance and was returned as first member to serve the then Legislative Assembly. The 60-0 result of the poll was a historical first. The MMM-PSM alliance party had won every contested seat across the country, a score that was unique worldwide in a freely contested multi-party democracy. Thus, Sir Anirudh assumed his first prime ministership. However, following certain ideological differences within the alliance, Sir Anirudh founded his own party, the Mouvement Socialiste Militant, the MSM, on 8th of April 1983, with the sun as its evocative symbol. He contested the general election of 21st August 1983 in constituency number 7 under the banner of the MSM Labour Party alliance and was returned as second member. The alliance won the elections and Sir Anirudh was once again appointed Prime Minister, a post which he would occupy for the next 12 years. Sir Anirudh contested the two successive general elections of 1987 and 1991 in his usual constituency under the banner of the MSM Labour Party Alliance and MSM-MMM Alliance respectively, and was returned first member in both elections. Sir Anirudh remained at the helm of the government as Prime Minister until December 1995. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was the visionary, bold and disciplined leadership of Sir Anirudh that saved the sinking economy which he inherited in 1982 and rekindled the waning hope of a whole nation. By creating the right environment of economic leadership, law and order and discipline, Sir Anirudh gave the confidence to all Mauritian entrepreneurs, large and small, that they could take the country forward. And this confidence, projected to the world, attracted international investors who came and participated to make it happen. Under his able stewardship, Mauritius made huge strides in its economic development, lifting hundreds of thousands of people out of poverty and restoring the economic fundamentals which had been in the red zone for a long time. The post-1983 period saw the beginning of an era when Mauritius evolved from a poor monocrop agricultural-based economy into one of Africa's relatively richest countries. The success of the government policies was recognized and acknowledged not only by the local population, but also by international organizations and financial institutions, so much so that it earned Sir Anirudh the highly deserved and merited attribute of Father of the Mauritian Economic Miracle. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the strongest characteristics of Sir Anirudh was his passionate belief in his country, in Mauritius as an independent nation-state, freeing itself from colonial reigns and taking charge of its own destiny. He translated this passion into leading the process which made Mauritius into a republic. Thus, he will also be remembered as the architect of the accession of the country to the status of a republic by championing the enactment of the Constitution of Mauritius Amendment Act 1991, which paved the way for Mauritius to become a republic with the president as the head of the state. It was indeed another milestone in the constitutional development of our country, when on the 12th of March 1992, Mauritius acceded to the status of a republic, a historic transition that bears the indelible imprint of Sir Anirudh. Mr. Speaker, Sir Anirudh also stood as candidate for the 1995 general election in constituency number 7 under the banner of the MSM-RMM alliance, but was not returned. However, despite the heavy electoral defeat, the only one at any general election, Sir Anirudh, as a true democrat, conceded the defeat promptly and elegantly while maintaining his poise, dignity, and composure. He was magnanimous in victory and gracious in defeat, and this is the hallmark of a great statesman. Mr. Speaker, Sir, in the year 2000, he contested the general election under the banner of the MSM-MMM alliance and was returned first member for constituency number 7 to serve the National Assembly. He was once again appointed Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Sir, it is no secret that Sir Anirudh had a soft spot for Rodrigues, and it is under his prime ministership that, in 2001, the island made a democratic leap by acceding to an autonomous status within the Republic with its own regional assembly and an executive council. Monsieur le Président, Sir Anirudh a toujours défendu ses idées et ses convictions avec détermination. Son courage restera gravé dans nos mémoires. On se souviendra de Sir Anirudh comme l'architecte de la République de Maurice, et c'est lui, encore une fois, en tant que bâtisseur, qui fonda la cybercité d'Ébène en 2001. Grâce à cette infrastructure qui a marqué le début de l'ère du numérique à Maurice, il laissera aux futures générations un héritage qui leur permettra d'exploiter au mieux les opportunités créées par les nouvelles technologies. Il faut se rappeler que durant les années 80, Sir Anirudh s'attellera à la diversification et à la démocratisation de l'économie, tout en lançant 2 autres piliers économiques, que sont le secteur des services financiers et le port franc, qui ont contribué significativement au développement socio-économique du pays. Il a propulsé la modernisation des infrastructures publiques à travers le pays et initié la création de la National Development Unit qui aidera à réduire la disparité entre les villes et les villages, sans oublier, Monsieur le Président, sa contribution en faveur de l'émancipation de la femme et l'amélioration de la condition féminine en général. Mr. Speaker, Sir, on 30th of September 2003, Sir Anirudh resigned as Prime Minister to pass on the reign of power to his alliance partner, Honorable Paul Béranger, so as to honor his electoral pledge. In so doing, he amply demonstrated that he was un homme de parole and that in public life, some values and principles transcend politics and party. Being true to himself and his beliefs, he considered it his duty to uphold and promote these values and principles. He was convinced that the best way for one to leave one's mark on the world is to work for lofty ideals and to strive for something bigger than oneself. The outpour of sympathy here and from across the world following his demise proved him so right. On 7th of October 2003, he was elected by the National Assembly to serve as President of the Republic and was conferred the title of Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean. By virtue of his strength of character and upholder of values and principles, he fitted admirably for the role of President and champion of the Constitution. He greatly enhanced the prestige and stature of the office by serving with his usual distinction, selfless devotion, and his utmost commitment to constitutional values and norms. On 19th of September 2008, he was again elected President of the Republic. However, on 30th of March 2012, Sir Anirudh resigned from the office of President of the Republic in the best interests of the country to once again engage himself in active politics. And in 2014, despite his advanced age of 84, he did not hesitate to put himself anew at the service of the nation. He contested the 2014 general election in constituency number 7 under the banner of l'Alliance Les Peuples and was elected first member. He became Prime Minister for his 6th mandate. Mr. Speaker, sir, throughout his long political career, spanning over 7 decades, Sir Anirudh showed deep respect for the constitution of the country, for the institutions of the state, for separation of powers, and above all, for the rule of law and human rights. As a matter of fact, one of his most enduring legacies, which still arouses the admiration and respect of one and all, is his relentless and epic struggle for the complete decolonization of Mauritius and for the cause of the Chagosian community. Many thought it a lost cause. Nevertheless, Sir Anirudh, in a striking testimony of his dogged determination and tenacity, decided to bring our legitimate claim of sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago to the United Nations General Assembly in 2017, requesting a vote on a resolution to seek an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice. The vote gave him and the country an overwhelming and historic victory. Driven by his unflinching faith, he subsequently decided, at the age of 88, to once again wear his barrister's gown and make a powerful, convincing, and memorable submission at the International Court of Justice for the complete decolonization of Mauritius and the legitimate rights of the Chagosians. This, as we all know, resulted in the landmark pronouncement in favor of Mauritius. That was the last successful battle of Sir Anirudh for his motherland. Mr. Speaker, sir, Sir Anirudh will also be remembered for his contribution to law and order, and above all, for his ruthless battle against the drug mafia, as evidenced by the 2 commissions of inquiry which he instituted on drug trafficking, and the numerous decisive and bold measures he took to tackle the drug scourge in Mauritius, even at the risk of his life. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 23rd January 2017, when he considered that the time was right for him to call it a day, Sir Anirudh resigned as Prime Minister. And on the same day, he was appointed Minister Mentor, Minister of Defense, Minister for Rodrigues, a portfolio which he held until November 2019. Thereafter, he retired from active politics. Mr. Speaker, sir, the achievements and contribution of Sir Anirudh in the course of his long and rich political career have been recognized both in Mauritius and abroad. In 1980, he was conferred with the title of Queen's Counsel by Her Majesty the Queen. In 1984, he was conferred the Grand Croix de l'Ordre de la Pléiade, an honorary order of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, in recognition of his distinguished role in the promotion of the ideals of the organization. In 1985, he was awarded the title of Doctor Honoris Causa by the University of Aix-en-Provence, and that of Doctor Honoris Causa in Civil Law by the University of Mauritius. In 1987, he was elevated to the rank of Privy Councillor by Her Majesty the Queen. This is a distinguished award which conferred upon him the title of the Right Honourable for life. In January 1988, he was awarded the first-class Grand Cordon of the Order of the Rising Sun by the Japanese government. Later in the same year, he was elevated to the rank of Knight Commander of the most distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George by Her Majesty the Queen. In 1990, France conferred upon Sir Anirudh the title of the Grand Officier de l'Ordre de la Légion d'Honneur, and in 2009, the title of Honorary Doctorate from the Middlesex University was conferred upon him. In 2020, the Padma Vibhushan Award, which is the second highest civilian award in the field of public affairs, was conferred upon Sir Anirudh by the Republic of India for his continuous efforts towards deepening friendship between India and Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House is also aware, following the demise of Sir Anirudh, the Government of India, as a mark of respect to him, declared the 5th of June a day of national mourning throughout India. The whole Mauritian nation was deeply touched by this very telling and significant gesture of sympathy by the Government of India towards Sir Anirudh and the people of Mauritius. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, his government, and the people of India for this tremendous tribute to the memory of Sir Anirudh. It is a profound example of the very special relationship between our two countries. I would also like to thank all the foreign dignitaries and all the people from all over the world who expressed their sympathy to Lady Sarojini and my family and to the whole nation on the demise of Sir Anirudh. Mr. Speaker, sir, Sir Anirudh was a man of exceptional qualities who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the country's most accomplished and acclaimed leaders. His life journey is a perfect illustration of the triumph of perseverance, courage, and determination, and is a source of great inspiration to our people, especially our youth. In him, we see a true patriot, endowed with an indomitable spirit, who earned his rightful place in history through the deed of hard work, struggle, and faith in selfless service to the nation. He was a man of great vision, driven by the grand and noble ideals to make his country a better place for everybody, just as he made this house a better place with his distinguished presence and valuable contributions. His leadership qualities percolated from the House into government as he led successive teams of ministers and other parliamentarians by allowing them to deliver results to which he held them accountable. He had earned himself a reputation of being a no-nonsense person. He was known for his franc-parler, for being truthful, candid and straightforward, qualities that aroused the admiration and respect of his collaborators and opponents alike. But he will be remembered specially for his simplicity and humility. He had deep faith in the universality of men and believed in the eternal values of the brotherhood of men, all of which made him a beacon of peace and harmony. He would never treat anybody differently because of his color, creed, or gender. He professed and practiced patriotism that transcended religion and politics. He indeed personified the wisdom of humanism. Throughout his life, he remained connected with the masses, and he will be sorely missed. The scope of his accomplishment and the admiration that he so rightly earned made of him a living legend. A man of boundless energy, he showed us the power of action. We were simply amazed by what he was capable of doing, even at his advanced age, and he discharged all his responsibilities with honor, dignity, grit, and determination. Even when out of office, he retained his sharpness of mind and remained an inspiring personality to whom we would look for as a source of wisdom and enlightened guidance. Mr. Speaker, sir, Sir Anirudh won the hearts of all Mauritians by his simplicity and warmth. He could walk with kings and yet keep the common touch of simplicity and humility. His noble feelings and his abiding concern for the well-being of his people and his country will continue to be a source of inspiration for generations to come. Mahatma Gandhi rightly said that great men never died. It is up to us to keep them immortal by continuing the work they have commenced. Mr. Speaker, sir, Sir Anirudh was respected across the House, and I'm sure you will all join me in paying a tribute to this great statesman who took a tryst with destiny to shape a better future for our country and our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, Lady Sarojini and my family have lost a pillar. I have lost a much-loved father who was my source of inspiration. The nation has lost a son who dedicated almost 60 years of his life serving his country and his fellow citizens. We can say that from his new abode in heaven, he will continue to bless us all. As said André Malraux, la tombe des héros est le cœur des vivants. The country bows to his memory. We shall miss him deeply. May his soul rest in peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with equal sadness that we learned of the demise of Sir Anirudh. Sir Anirudh, 6 times Prime Minister, many years President of the Republic, has had an undeniable, prestigious career and has left his mark on his country, on this country, in particular, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the economic and social development of the nation, for which he will be long remembered. Mr. Speaker, after winning the 1983 general election, the PMSD joined Sir Anirudh Jagnnath in government from 1983 to 1988. It was a transformational period for our country, with rapid economic development, which the Prime Minister just rightly now called the economic miracle. Sir Anirudh Jagnnath led a very able team, with my own father as Deputy Prime Minister, Sir Satkam Boulel, and a very able Minister of Finance, Vishnu Rajmilaidu. Mr. Speaker, I personally met Sir Anirudh Jagnnath in 1986 for the first time. It was during a ministerial crisis. I think some ministers had resigned, and my father thought it fit to take me to La Caverne. And I was there, the only young member, surrounded by ministers. I didn't quite know what I was doing there. But I enjoyed the meeting and the way that he held the meeting. Then again, Mr. Speaker, in 1987, I was chosen by the PMSD to stand as candidate for the general election in alliance with the MSM. I was then a partner of the SAJ, and my other partners thought it very wrong that I should stand, and they categorically refused to allow me to stand, which I then communicated to my father. We went on to Sarnerud, and Sarnerud called all the partners of the SAJ and told them that Juval had to stand, and they changed their mind very promptly and encouraged me to stand in the election, and we won the seat in the very difficult stronghold, then opposition stronghold of Port Louis. Mr. Speaker, the PMSD resigned from government in 1988. Then followed, I must say, an unfortunate and antagonistic period between the MSM and the PMSD, with the regrettable reopening of the Azo Adelaide case. But after a preliminary inquiry, the case was abandoned by the DPP. But I must say this, Mr. Speaker, that in 1995, I was personally a witness to the reconciliation of the two men, with the help of two persons, which I will mention, Azad Duman and Baby Chattar. You see, the two men were reconciled in 1995, and the PMSD joined the MSM government for a short period that year. To illustrate the pragmatism of Sir Anirudh Jagannath, I'd like to say that he agreed to the abolishment of the death penalty in all the subsidiary legislations, although I think it was not of his own liking, but he agreed to it, and also to pass laws for allowing dual nationality for all our citizens. This, to me, illustrates the pragmatism of Sir Anirudh Jagannath. Mr. Speaker, many years later, our paths crossed again when in 2014 the PMSD joined the MSM, led into victory, the victory of Alliance Le Peuple under Sir Anirudh Jagannath. We left, as you know, at the end of 2016 on a constitutional disagreement, Mr. Speaker. I would like to offer my very deep, personal and sincere condolences to Lady Saroji, to the Prime Minister and Mrs. Kobita Jagannath, to Mrs. Shalini and Mr. Kishan Malhotra, and to all his family, close family and friends. And once again, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the occasion to pay tribute to a truly exceptional person. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi de prime abord, au nom de la plateforme militante, de vous remercier d'avoir accordé à chaque parti politique représenté au Parlement le droit de s'exprimer pour saluer la mémoire de Sir Anirudh Jagannath qui nous a quittés le 3 juin dernier. Monsieur le Président, mes chers collègues ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les députés, Sir Anirudh Jagannath était de ceux, avec Sir Saga Ramgoolam et Sir Gaëtan Duval, de ceux qui ont incarné les grandes luttes de leur temps et ont changé le cours de l'histoire. Élu de l'Independent Forward Bloc en 1963, Sir Anirudh Jagannath quitte l'Assemblée nationale en 2019. 56 ans pendant lesquels l'on compte 31 ans de députation, presque 20 ans à la primature et 9 ans à la présidence de la République. Un record de longévité depuis l'indépendance pour ce fils de laboureur et laboureur lui-même pendant un temps, qui ne perdra jamais ce bon sens populaire imprégné d'un franc-parler connu de tous, qui ne se départira jamais, malgré tous les honneurs qui lui furent décernés, de la simplicité que tous lui reconnaissaient. Je veux saluer en Sir Anirudh Jagannath un grand patriote qui, dès son premier discours ici, dans cette auguste assemblée, affirmera « We must stop thinking », et je cite, « We must stop thinking in terms of Hindus, Muslims or general population. We must try to think in terms of Mauritians, because everyone is born in this country. » Fin de citation. Un patriote qui, ministre de Sagar Ramgoolam, participa à la conférence constitutionnelle de Lancaster House pour soutenir et préparer l'indépendance de notre patrie. Je veux saluer en Saniru Jugnot le militant arrivé au pouvoir en 1982 en tant que Premier ministre du changement de l'Alliance MMM-PSM, qui entamera un combat contre les reliquats du colonialisme qui permettra l'accession du pays au statut de République, et le militant qui défendra farouchement l'intégrité territoriale de notre pays jusqu'à la reconnaissance par la Cour internationale de justice de la souveraineté mauricienne sur les Chagos en 2017 et qui plus tard débouchera sur une victoire éclatante que l'on connaît à l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies. Je veux saluer en Saniru Jugnot, Monsieur le Président, le père du développement économique et de l'industrialisation, du miracle économique, car Maurice, souvenons-nous, passera d'un PIB, d'un produit intérieur brut par tête d'habitant de 11 813 roupies en 1982 à 62 573 roupies en 1995 et puis à 361 456 roupies en 2017 lorsqu'il quitte la primature, donc à la veille de notre accession au statut de pays à haut revenu. Monsieur le Président, je veux saluer en Saniru Jugnot le réformateur qui, avec le MMM et puis avec le MSM, inscrira l'égalité du genre dans la loi en amendant le Code civil en 1982, le réformateur qui assurera le succès de la grande réforme éducative qui garantira l'éducation pour tous jusqu'à l'âge de 16 ans, la régionalisation de notre système éducatif et l'abolition du CPE Tantoni, le réformateur qui assurera l'autonomie de l'île Rodrigue. Je veux saluer en Saniru Jugnot le démocrate qui, avec le MMM, amendera la Constitution dès son arrivée au pouvoir en 1982 pour rétablir les législatives partielles et garantir la tenue régulière d'élections nationales, et plus tard permettra l'entrée en opération des radios privées. Je veux saluer en Saniru Jugnot le rassembleur et le bâtisseur d'un pays moderne, travaillant tour à tour avec le Parti travailliste, le PMSD, le MMM, l'OPR et d'autres partis, et qui a eu à son actif le développement du secteur financier, la modernisation du port, la création de la Cargo Handling Corporation, la cybercité d'ébène, le développement de l'industrie informatique comme 5e pilier de notre économie, et j'en passe. Monsieur le Président, l'Assemblée nationale et le pays retiendront de Saniru Jugnot sa détermination, sa ténacité, sa volonté de faire d'autant le pays d'un leadership fort dont il avait tant besoin à une époque charnière de son histoire. Saniru Jugnot, Monsieur le Président, n'appartient plus au MSM, mais il appartient à la République de Maurice. Au-delà des appartenances partisanes, il appartient désormais à la nation mauricienne tout entière, à chacun et à tous. Rester fidèle à Saniru Jugnot, c'est préserver les acquis qu'il nous a légués, c'est faire vivre les valeurs qui étaient siennes, c'est poursuivre les combats de toute sa vie. Nous nous engageons à suivre la voie qu'il a tracée et Saniru Jugnot ne sera jamais oublié. Monsieur le Président, Sagar Ramgoolam a été le père de l'indépendance. Saniru Jugnot, le père de la République de Maurice moderne, et du développement économique. Il est opportun qu'ils reposent désormais tous deux au jardin de Pamplemousse. Un géant s'en est allé, laissant dans les cœurs et dans les esprits un énorme vide qui nous afflige tous. Je présente dans ces moments pénibles à Lady Sarojini Jagannath, à notre Premier ministre et à mon ami Pravin Jagannath, à Madame Shalini Jagannath et à leurs familles respectives, mes plus vives et sincères condoléances. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Lorsque Sir Anirudh nous a quittés jeudi dernier, c'est une page de notre histoire qu'il a tournée. Il nous a quittés pour rejoindre toute une génération de hautes personnalités politiques. De Sir Siousagar Ramgoolam à Sir Gaëtan Duval, Sir Abdul Razak Mohamed, Sir Veerasamir Ingadou, Sukhdeo Bisundoyal, Sir Satkam Boulel. Sir Anirudh Jagannath a profondément marqué notre histoire politique récente. Élu pour la première fois à ce Parlement aux élections générales de 1963, il participa dès 1965 à la conférence historique de Lancaster House, où se décida l'indépendance du pays. De 1971 à 1983, il fut avec nous au MMM. Tout au long de 1972, il resta aux côtés de Kader Bayat pour garder vivants les liens entre les détenus de l'état d'urgence et le monde extérieur. Nous avons vécu ensemble le grand moment de 1982. Comme nous avons été ensemble pour faire de l'île Maurice une république, pour donner à Rodrigue son autonomie et pour commencer le combat pour notre souveraineté sur les Chagos et Tromelin. En ces moments de douleur et de tristesse, toutes mes pensées vont à sa fille et à son fils, et surtout à Lady Sarojini. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with great sadness and an enormous sense of shock that the nation learned of the demise of Sir Anirudh Jagannath on the 3rd of April last. My heartfelt and deepest condolences go out to Sir Anirudh Jagannath's family, and in particular to Lady Sarojini and the Honourable Pravin Jagannath and Mrs. Kubina Jagannath, and the sister of our Prime Minister and their families. These are difficult times for them, Mr. Speaker, sir. The nation mourns with you, Lady Sarojini and Honourable Prime Minister, as we pay tribute to this remarkable man who devoted nearly 60 years of his life to the service of our country. Sir, I have had the privilege of knowing him, sharing his experience, inspiring myself from his work ethics, and admiring his commitment to his fellow citizens for more than 40 years. And I am proud to have been associated with this political giant and the most illustrious political stalwart of this country. As I know that his like will not be seen soon again. Mr. Speaker, sir, the 20 years between us means nothing because we both had hailed from the same legal and political background. I first met SAJ in the 70s when he had just left the judiciary to practice as a barrister, and I was a young barrister fresh from the Middle Temple from the UK. During these years, I recall having had the honor to appear against him in a few cases, but also appearing with him as his junior when our then supporters, our militants, had regularly to face trial in cases of a political nature. I had the opportunity at that time to appreciate and to learn from his talents as a barrister and his skills as a searching and ruthless cross-examiner. Then came the milestone of 1982, when Sir Anirudh became Prime Minister and Leader of the House. I was then elected as the Speaker of the new Legislative Assembly, thus becoming his first Speaker. And during my short term of office, which lasted nearly 1 year, Mr. Speaker, sir, never had he attempted in any way to influence me in my function as the then Speaker of the House. The early days of his Prime Minister was certainly not a bed of roses, but all of us who had lived these days with him would remember the composure, the stoicism, and the ingenuity he demonstrated, which in fact paved the way for the statesman he was to become. Our path met again in the early 90s and 20s, when I had the privilege of serving him as Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and in 2000 as his Minister of Public Utilities, respectively. In my capacity as Attorney General, I had the immense pleasure of working closely with him to amend the Constitution to make of Mauritius a republic. By so doing, he displayed his independence of mind and his commitment to make of Mauritius a stronger democracy, to strengthen the democratic foundation of the country. I can vouch, Mr. Speaker, that it was his idea to amend Section 47 of the Constitution, thus making it impossible for any government, even with a three-quarter majority, to change the democratic nature of our government. The landmark Privy Council judgment of Tufani, in fact, reproduces the statement of SAJ, the statement he made in the debates in 1991 when the Constitution was being amended. This is what this judgment said. The overriding purpose was made crystal when in the parliamentary debates as reported in Hansard on 9 December 1991, the Prime Minister, Sir Anirudh Jagnnath, stated, and the judgment quotes, reproduces what Sir Anirudh said in this very house. And this is what he said. Today, we are taking that exercise a little further. The present government also wants to establish firmly the democratic basis of our Constitution by making it practically impossible to amend Section 1 of the Constitution. Section 1, we remember, talks about Mauritius being a democratic country. And the judgment went on to, and Mr. Anirudh goes on to say let it not therefore be said that this government does not cherish democratic principles. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also recall that during my tenure of office as Minister of Public Utilities, the inauguration of the Midlands Dam, which was initiated by East government in the early 30s, and I remember choosing the 29th March 2003, the date of his birthday, to inaugurate this first post-independence dam. Sir, many years ago, SAJ started the challenging journey to shape the destiny of our nation. During this long and distinguished career, his work became his passion. He set the highest standards for himself and for others too, showing political talent, firm determination, dedication and honor, indomitable courage in adversity, clear-sighted vision, steadfastness of purpose, pragmatism, and yet staying simple and humble in manner. And with these qualities went a zest for his life, which made him young at heart and in spirit. Mr. Speaker, sir, SAJ has left an extraordinary legacy behind, one which will remain with us for generations to come. Indeed, his passion for making our country a much better place to live than when he first found it will in itself remain a lasting tribute to his sense of duty. We will all miss him, a consummate professional, a mentor, a counselor, a confidant, a stern father figure, but also a friend and a shoulder to lean on. For he had humanity to the innermost core of his heart, and this endeared him to our people, and especially to the women of this country, for whom he championed their cause relentlessly. Mr. Speaker, sir, during my several years as a politician, I have also known him as a political adversary, within and outside this house. I always had a lot of respect for him, in spite of his legendary sarcasm and cynicism. He was an outspokenly dreadful orator, and he had words, and his hard words would without fail knock the opposition out of their senses. I recall how one day during a hot and passionate debate in the House, after all the members of the opposition, including me, we had strenuously and forcefully made our case in this very House. Sir Anirudh, as the Prime Minister, rose to wind up the debate. And in his usual candid, articulate, mastering and towering way, he rebutted all our arguments, turned the table, which left us dumbfounded. We left the chamber on that day a bit confused. Elections were not far away. On our way, we looked at each other, and I remember a senior member of the party told us, "Comment parlement à sa mons là." So, Mr. Speaker, that was Sir Anirudh Jagnat. A combination of political acumen and public affection, which I believe stem from his humble beginnings. I remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, how in my first electoral campaign of 1982, I was participating in a public meeting at Parlement, his place of birth. As the last orator, he mesmerized the audience when they listened to that village boy who was destined to accede to the supreme public position of the country in a few months. And his audience nearly melted in tears when he narrated how in this very village he had walked to school barefooted. Mr. Speaker, sir, Shakespeare had in his 12th Night said, "Some men are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." Sir Anirudh belongs to those who achieve greatness. He was a self-made man who toiled hard, and for that he deserves our utmost respect and appreciation. Mr. Speaker, sir, Hegel had stated that nothing great in the world has ever been achieved without passion. SAJ, greatness has been achieved by his passion for the good of humanity and the love of his country. But for us, the political class, to my mind, SAJ has taught us that political leadership is not about giving resounding speeches and flamboyantly displaying shallow, witty comments or smart criticism, but about achieving and getting things done for the good of the people. This was a man of action, of conviction, of results, guided by sound practicality. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me end this tribute to SAJ by reiterating my deepest sympathy to the Prime Minister, to his family, and by borrowing from Jawaharlal Nehru's eulogy to Mahatma Gandhi. Quote, "He has gone, and all over the country there is a feeling of desolation and forlornness. All of us sense that feeling, and I do not know when this will dissipate. And yet, together with that feeling, there is also a feeling of proud thankfulness that we owe to this mighty person." Unquote. By Anirudh, thank you for all you have done for our nation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with humility that I pay tribute to a dedicated family man, a political giant, and a leader who since 1983 had influenced the history of this country. The consolidation of his leadership was, according to Sir Satkam Bulel, in his book, The Love of My Country, largely due to the, and I quote, astuteness of Sir Siv Sagar, who with the Labour Party behind him, rushed to the rescue of Anirudh Jagnat and his group of faithful and in the general election that followed in 1983. The role played by Harish Budu was not negligible either. Sir Gaiton Jival was always close to extend the helping hand. As Prime Minister, Sir Anirudh Jagnat gave considerable leeway to his ministers to define policies. The ministers then were the shapers and movers of policies. Many of the senior ministers were from the alliance made up of the Labour Party and the PMST. It is equally true for the MMM when it concluded an alliance with Sir Anirudh Jagnat's party in 2000. No conductor, Mr. Speaker, of an orchestra becomes a maestro without the collective effort of his players. Sir Anirudh Jagnat deservedly earned the title of maestro. And I say maestro, not Rambo. It was not thrust upon him. He deservedly earned the title. The defining moment of his political career was the stand he took before the International Court of Justice. It was unprecedented. As a fatherly figure, Donning the lawyer's gown, he stood tall and dignified before the lawyers and the panel of judges of the International Court of Justice. He put across the legitimate claim of a republic over the Chagos Archipelago as defined in Section 1 of our Constitution. On the 25th February 2019, the ICJ concluded that, I quote, "The United Kingdom is under an obligation to bring to an end its administration of Chagos Archipelago as rapidly as possible," I unquote, was indeed a feather in Anirudh Jagannath's cap and scarf. May I remind the nation that the contribution of past prime ministers in the decolonization process had been remarkable too. The young boy who grew up in Palma, perhaps in his inner thoughts, had a tryst with destiny. He was 10 years old when he accompanied his father to listen to the sermons of Basdev Bisundayal on Hindu scriptures. As we say, Mr. Speaker, it is the stars above us which sometimes govern our destiny, but Anirudh Jagannath, through the dint of hard work, shaped his future. He attended secondary school after some persuasion from his cousin Lal, and Anirudh took the rung of the social ladder with courage and determination. Education, Mr. Speaker, said the best investment for empowerment and democratization. Free education is a right in our great little country, so indeed say all of us. Anirudh Jagannath never looked back, and by blazing the trail, got a large followers to break the glass ceilings. Even at Le Réduit, his political instincts were overpowering. There are lessons to be learned from Anirudh Jagannath's relentlessness, endurance, and the art of persuasion. He displayed combativeness and resilience at an age when others would gladly have retired and enjoyed the fruits of their hard-earned labor. But instead, he chose to descend into the arena and fight yet another electoral battle. Only death will extinguish his fighting spirits. Anirudh Jagannath was not lured by power to forsake his principles, but was smart to position himself in every opportunity before the sun set. He made it a point for Mauritians to know more about his past so that they would identify more readily with him. Despite his tenacity, he had two legitimate soft spots: his great love for Lady Jagannath and soccer. Government or family matters could wait a little bit when big matches were on. Lady Jagannath remained the pillar of his strength, a life partner, great partner with a common bond of affection and shared values. They stood together and were an exemplary couple. Sarojini Jagannath has never been too discreet or forward, but a shadow who never overshadowed her partner for life. My relations with Anirudh Jagannath were more sour than sweet, but the respect was mutual. I went to see him a few times to make representations, and on one occasion called on him to redress a grievance of our award of scholarships to two deserving cases. The matter was swiftly resolved. Justice prevailed. Anirudh Jagannath was a swift mover and never half measures, but had the courage also to acknowledge when mistakes were made. His accessibility gave him the edge, and he grasped every opportunity to consolidate his hold over the electorate. As Prime Minister, not only was he the first amongst the equals, but he acted with a tight fist as and when required to convey strong signals his leadership was uncontested. There is no predictability, Mr. Speaker, and reliability in the dynamics of politics. and the landscape changes. And who knew better than Anirudh Jagannath? In moments of needs, common interests and values prevail, and prime ministers come together. There were some interesting picks between Anirudh Jagannath and Navin Ramgoolam. At the end of the day, all politicians are mere mortals, but the human touch makes the difference. The life of a great leader has no beginning, no ending. He or she fights to recover what has been lost and found. The life of Anirudh Jagannath was the largest at beauty and simplicity. Yusuf Mohammed, a seasoned politician and lawyer and former minister, would agree that Anirudh Jagannath never campaigned in poetry, but truly governed fearlessly in prose. He had the team when the challenges were daunting and opportunities were indeed knocking. Is it a tryst of destiny that Sir Siv Sagar Ramgoolam and Anirudh Jagannath have to meet again and the better species at the Sir Siv Sagar Ramgoolam Botanical Garden in the shade of Le Château de Montplaisir? Many untold stories of unity may unfurl for the sake of a great little country. Time is indeed a healer, Lady Sarojini Jagannath. The memories live on. May I, Mr. Speaker, through you, humbly convey my heartfelt condolences to the Prime Minister, Mrs. Kavita Jagannath, Mrs. Shalini Malhotra and her husband, all the grandchildren, Lady Jagannath, the close relatives of the family, and all the supporters of Anirudh Jagannath. May God bless his soul.
Mr. Speaker, I speak today in homage to Sir Anirudh Jagannath, inspired as I am by these words of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur, l'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. Our eyes always miss the essential. It is our heartbeat that counts. This is why it is daunting to appraise the life and career of this man whose imprint is so deeply ingrained in all sectors of Mauritian life. We are gathered here today to convey our respect for an admirable man who from very modest beginnings rose to hold the highest positions in the country. Acclaimed internationally, he was in receipt of numerous prestigious awards. But he always retained a life of simplicity and humility. His unfailing discipline and rigor always guided him in his responsibilities. We have seen him in victory. We saw him in defeat. We saw him in times of success as well as in times of failure. But after each fall, he got up with stoic spirit and persevered on his trajectory. This was because he was imbued with a sincere desire to serve his country. This is the image of Sir Anirudh Jagannath that shall remain in our minds, that of a leader with an unbreakable sense of patriotism. Mr. Speaker, who could have believed that at the age of 84 in 2014, he would have embarked in a political campaign and led the Alliance Le PEP to a landslide victory, just because he was convinced that he had a just cause to fight. He had given his word to fight for his country, and this he did, to the very last. He was un homme de parole. Mr. Speaker, the people of Rodrigues will forever remember him for the setting up of the Regional Assembly, giving dignity and recognition to the Rodriguan population. Until then, Rodrigues had been no more but a mere geographical expression. None other than Sir Anirudh Jagannath would, at the age of 88, have had the courage, strength, and tenacity to take up his lawyer's garb before the duly constituted international bodies to fight for the completion of our struggle for independence. He did all this for the Chagossian people, for the complete independence of Mauritius, for Africa, and for universal human rights. The more so against the most powerful nations of the world. Mr. Speaker, Sir Anirudh did not hesitate to reinforce women's participation in political and economic life. The introduction of the Sex Discrimination Act in 2002, the ratification of 2 fundamental conventions of the International Labour Organization on equal remuneration and discriminations are some examples. The reforms of the Code Civil in the 1980s as well. During his mandates, substantial improvements were made to improve conditions of work. It is in 2001 that the End-of-Year Gratuity Act was enacted to make the payment of the end-of-the-year bonus a permanent feature. The welfare funds for EPZ workers, tourism sector workers, seafarers, bus industry employees were all of his making. In 2014, he relentlessly waged a campaign to increase pension benefits to the underprivileged. And we should not forget the Companies Act of 1984, which put our economy on the path of modernity. He will also be remembered for having agreed to abolish the death penalty. He will be remembered also for some controversial pieces of legislation, but which remained in our statute book over the years. I also have to mention the strong will and determination with which he led the country to the status of republic. Our country was fortunate to have such a man of strong leadership and sense of purpose. He had the daring to stand against any authority or directive that did not serve the interest of the country. He would never allow himself to become the hostage to anyone. As an attentive listener, his decisions were based on lucidity, rationality, and judiciousness. Mr. Speaker, I grew up in La Caverne, not far from Sir Anirudh. I remember how until 1982 he would go to Vakwa Market every Friday afternoon. His wife, Lady Sarojini, was my school teacher in 1956. I have personally known Sir Anirudh since I joined the bar in 1978. I've known him as a colleague, a leader, as well as an opponent. We have always shared a relationship based on brotherhood and respect. He loved his profession. He loved his political and social struggle, but above all, he loved his family. His wife, Lady Sarojini, his children, Pravin, now the Prime Minister, and daughter Shalini, and his grandchildren. But how can I not mention his love for football? I can still remember the day when he sneaked out of Parliament in 2001, a few minutes before dinner time. He returned half an hour late after dinner, and that was extremely unusual for him. He was in an extremely short temper. Upon being asked what had happened, he angrily retorted, "Manchester fi perdi." And he kept muttering comments on the match to the then Deputy Prime Minister, who remained unimpressed by these manifestations of dissatisfaction. Mr. Speaker, I conclude with these words of Saint-Exupéry, which epitomize the essence of Sir Anirudh Jagannath. Être homme, c'est précisément être responsable. C'est sentir en posant sa pierre que l'on contribue à bâtir le monde. In the name of the ML and of my two ML colleagues, Honorable Nazur Ali and Honorable Raoult, and in my personal name, I would ask you to convey to Lady Sarojini and to all the family the warmest expression of our sympathy and condolences. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the House on behalf of the people of Rodrigues, of OPR Party and its leader, Luis Esclair, also the current Chief Commissioner of Rodrigues, to pay tribute to late the Right Honourable Sir Anirudh Jagannath, former Prime Minister and President of the Republic of Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, before going any further, allow me to join my fellow honourable friends to send the deepest condolences of we, the people of Rodrigues, to his wife, to his son, his daughter, the whole family, friends, and the Mauritian nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Republic has lost a great man, and Rodrigues has lost a great friend. I will not elaborate on the very long career of late Sir Anirudh Jagannath. His legacy as the longest-serving Prime Minister in this very House is much testament of the great vision of the man and of the trust that the people of Mauritius had for him. Mr. Speaker, sir, I certainly associate myself with all the party representatives in this House to commemorate the extraordinary life and unique contribution of Sir Anirudh Jagannath for his country. We have heard so many things said in this House on his personal achievement and style of doing politics. Tonight, it is with an immense honor, but with such a heavy heart, that I am paying tribute to this great man, to his friendly and political legacy towards Rodrigues Island and its people. Last Saturday, as the country bid goodbye to Sir Anirudh Jagannath, many of my fellow constituents told me of a deepest sense of despair at the loss of such an important figure for Rodrigues. Many have spent almost the whole day in front of their television. Someone even said it was as if la mort contenu dans nous la cour. Mr. Speaker, sir, pardon me if I am being repetitive. The people of Rodrigues have really lost a great friend. And I have a special thought for our Chief Commissioner, whom I know is very much affected by the demise of Sir Anirudh Jagannath, and who deeply regrets that he was not able to pay his respect to his great friend of his in person. A special thought also for my honourable friend PPS Francisco François. I know he really wanted to be here to pay a tribute, and I know that Sir Anirudh Jagannath as well had a particular affection for him, and also of all the honor my friend had working closely with Sir Anirudh Jagannath, who himself long held the portfolio for Rodrigues. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a secret for no one that Sir Anirudh Jagannath was not a person out on political correctness. In fact, people admired him for his humility and frankness. We understood. The Rodriguan population had no doubt of the affection of Sir Anirudh Jagannath for it, which were often reiterated during his countless visits to Rodrigues, be it as President, Prime Minister, or other official capacity he held, and as well as privately. His contribution while serving the people of Rodrigues in his numerous capacities is innumerable, and same paved the way to an autonomous and sustainable Rodrigues Island. Mr. Speaker, Sir Anirudh Jagannath first visited Rodrigues in March 1982. What struck many at that time is that he was so well aware of the situation prevailing in Rodrigues during that period, and was also well aware of the wish of the Rodriguan people for a decentralized system of government. On March the 19th of March 1982, in his first public speech held at La Ferme Rodrigues under the political coalition MMM-PSM, to the Rodriguan people, he said, I quote, « Il y a beaucoup quelque chose qui peut passer à Rodrigues aujourd'hui, qui a pu créer un mécontentement, qui a pu créer une frustration, c'est le peuple rodriguais. Nous sommes fin capables d'éviter les camarades. » End of quote. He further stated, and I quote, « Ban frère excès dans Rodrigues, vous avez une capacité. Vous avez donné l'occasion pour qu'ils occupent des affaires. » End of quote. It was at this same public meeting that he tossed the word autonomy for the first time to the Rodriguan people, a status to which the OPR party was wishing since 1976. On that 19th of March 1982, the Rodriguan population heard the late Sir Anirudh Jagannath stated that he himself and the political authorities of the time were bringing all the energy together to fulfill the wish of the Rodriguan people into giving Rodrigues its autonomy. The House will recall it was under his prime ministership following the general election of June 1982 that the first Rodriguan OPR, very own Louis Clerc, formed part of cabinet of the central government of Mauritius and was entrusted with a portfolio for Rodrigues. Une action qui constituait un pas géant dans la promotion de la démocratie régionale. The people of Rodrigues had not forgotten, and we also remember the renewed trust that late Sir Anirudh Jagannath placed anew in the OPR following the general election. And in the meantime, the MSM party had been created. In 1987, as Parliament and the country embarked on the vision of Sir Anirudh Jagannath of making Mauritius a republic, he entrusted the portfolio, the Ministry of Rodrigues and Outer Islands to SAJ. Dans cet esprit d'une même république à venir et d'une seule nation, so as to bring that inclusiveness throughout the territory. History will recall the paradigm shift Sir Anirudh Jagannath continuously brought to the administration of Rodrigues. The establishment of Rodrigues Local Council in 1992 as a first instance. History will also recall that in 2000, the MSM-MMM government, under his leadership, made Rodrigues a duty-free zone. Furthermore, on the symbolic day of the 1st February 2001, during his official visit to Rodrigues, along with his then Vice Prime Minister, Honorable Béranger, Sir Anirudh Jagannath announced that his government is definitely giving Rodrigues its autonomy. To mark his seriousness to the Rodriguan people, a delegation was immediately sent to Trinidad and Tobago to examine the decentralized system thereat. The people of Rodrigues witnessed his commitment to value and, whenever possible, enhance Rodriguan capacities when late Antoinette Prudence and late former Judge Robert Annie were preferred by the competent instance to advise the government on the new decentralized form of government for Rodrigues. On Tuesday, the 20th November 2001, at 2:30 in the afternoon exactly, Sir Anirudh Jagannath presented the Rodrigues Regional Assembly bill in this House in second reading, and it was a roll-on landmark for history again. Sir Anirudh Jagannath was present in Rodrigues on the 12th October 2002 for the establishment of the first Rodrigues Regional Executive Council in his capacity as Prime Minister. Officiated at the establishment of the second and third Regional Assembly in his capacity as Guardian of the Constitution on Saturday 16 December 2006 and Saturday 11 February 2012 respectively, as well as for the reconstitution of the Executive Council in January 2011. He constantly showed his interest in the success of Rodrigues and often was the guest of honor at Rodrigues Day celebration. In fact, he never missed an opportunity to congratulate and encourage the Rodrigues people on the capacity to manage the decentralized system of governance and be an integral part of a prosperous Republic of Mauritius. And these anniversaries allow him to be up close with the whole Rodrigues population. Little did we know that as he visited the island several times in 2019, including the Rodrigues Day, whereby it was his last visit to Rodrigues. The wave at the door of the plane was a final farewell à la terre Rodriguez. SAJ has departed from our physical world, but he lives on in the heart of every Rodriguan. Mr. Speaker, sir, soon after the announcement of his death, the Executive Council of Rodrigues took the decision to organize an official salute at La Résidence, which is now the seat of the Executive Council, where SAJ resided when he visited Rodrigues along with Lady Sarojini in the early 80s. There was no hotel in Rodrigues at that time. A condolence book was also placed thereat, and many Rodriguan residents have welcomed this opportunity to pay their respects for this great man. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Rodrigues Regional Assembly has been recalled on this Tuesday, 10th June, to pay tribute to that exceptional man who so immensely contributed to the development of Rodrigues. The leader of OPR, Louis XVI, always referred to SAJ as a role model, with whom he has worked as minister for 10 years. He always recalled how he learned a lot from the man and constantly prompted us to adhere to the good principle he learned from Sir Anirudh Jagannath. Myself, I often hear him say, I quote, SAJ a toujours dit, pas mettre néné dans l'administration, dans la police, dans PSI et dans le judiciaire. Sir Anirudh Jagannath will be, in many ways, sorely missed by the Rodrigues people. He has constructively impacted on the evolution of Rodrigues and left an indelible impression on the Rodrigues of yesterday, of today, and tomorrow. Sir Anirudh Jagannath's footprints on Rodrigues are casted in stone for generations to come. Sir Anirudh Jagannath loved Rodrigues, and this has been time and again been evidenced in his bold decision for the prosperity of the island within a strong republic. And our people now look forward for you, Honorable Prime Minister, to keep this special affection alive. Mr. Speaker, sir, on behalf of all the people of Rodrigues, I would like to present again my sincere condolences to Sir Anirudh Jagannath family, especially to Lady Sarojini and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Mauritius, and reassure them of our affection and prayers at this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable members, I wish to associate myself with the kind words, observations and expressions of condolences conveyed by members from both sides of the House. Honourable members, as Speaker, I would like to add a few words of homage to the memory of Sir Anirudh Jagannath. I'm sure many of those who had the opportunity of knowing Sir Anirudh Jagannath would wish to join me in this endeavour. I have had the singular privilege of knowing Sir Anirudh since my early age. Sir Anirudh has always been a great humanitarian. He was imbued with a great sense of compassion and humility. He grew up in difficult times. Later, as a politician, he committed himself to the upliftment of the welfare state and the empowerment of women in the country. The reason why he drove his policies towards the betterment of the population with particular attention to children and the elderly. Under his prime ministership, I had the distinct opportunity to serve the House as a Member of Parliament and Parliamentary Private Secretary, and later as Ambassador to the Republic of Egypt and afterwards to the United States of America. During his parliamentary service, Sir Anirudh Jagannath would have been known for his intellectual capabilities in the mastery of his brief and ability to present arguments. Sir Anirudh Jagannath also attached scrupulous importance to parliamentary discipline and etiquette. Honourable members, on this note, I thank you for your kind attention and participation. I will convey the tribute paid by the House to late Sir Anirudh Jagannath today and the expressions of condolences to the bereaved family. To his spouse, Lady Sarojini Jagannath, his son, the Honourable Prime Minister and his family, his daughter, Mrs. Shalini Malhotra, and her family. I thank you once more for your attention, and the House stands adjourned.